Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Biden, Harris, and the First Lady make tour stops around the country to praise the newest rescue plan. This as some criticize it for being wasteful and for costs that could send the national debt soaring. Treasury Secretary Yellen suggests a wealth tax as one option to pay for it. Republican lawmakers visit a Texas facility for unaccompanied migrant children. One calls on Biden to visit the border, and we hear the locals' take on illegal immigration. Texas begins drafting new laws to protect against election fraud and restore voter confidence. Politicians there want to ban unsolicited mail-in voting. And the Washington Post admits they misquoted former President Trump in an earlier article. That quote was used to argue for Trump's impeachment. That and more on NTD News. Biden's branding his rescue plan as shots in arms and money in pockets. He gave remarks today about the newly passed plan just before he made a few tour stops to tout its effectiveness. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more from the White House.
President Biden today praising his newest relief package, saying it will revamp the economy. He's kicking off his tour to visit states like Pennsylvania and Georgia, where he'll tout his newest plan, while Vice President Kamala Harris and the First Lady will go to other states. Some say Biden is holding this tour to push back against those who have been doubtful of this relief package. And Biden today did push back against critics who have called this relief package wasteful spending.
We're going to have to stay on top of every dollar spent through the American Rescue Plan. And that's what we're going to do. We can do this. We will do this.
He's asked a veteran of the Clinton and Obama administrations, Gene Sperling, to lead an oversight of how the $1.9 trillion package will be distributed.
The source of constant communication, a source of guidance and support, and above all, a source of accountability for all of us to get the job done.
The president saying his plan would create 7 million jobs by the end of the year, referring to a Moody's economic forecast, which doesn't explain how exactly this relief plan would create those jobs. Today's comments come before he heads to Pennsylvania tomorrow, joining the First Lady and Vice President on their tour. The Vice President is already on the road in Las Vegas today, while the First Lady's in New Jersey.
So we're giving states the funds they need to retain these workers, even if budgets take a hit.
She refers to the $350 billion being sent to all 50 states in the District of Columbia. But the allocation of funds is based on unemployment rates. That means states who have kept stricter lockdown measures, like New York and California, will benefit more than states like Florida, which has worked hard to strike a balance between safety and an open economy. The Congressional Budget Office projects that this package's price tag is pushing the federal deficit to record levels. Latest projections show 2020's deficit totals to hit over $3 trillion. That's 3 times more than the year before.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen over the weekend saying that a wealth tax is still on the table for paying for this budget deficit, as well as other high-priced items such as Biden's proposed infrastructure project. While Biden hasn't specifically suggested a wealth tax just yet, Yellen says he has suggested that corporations as well as wealthier individuals should pay more to meet the needs of the economy. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
And the fence surrounding the Capitol building will start coming down next week. The Senate Sergeant at Arms said today that there is no credible threat that warrants using it any longer. The fence has drawn controversy for weeks from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. One Democrat congresswoman from D.C., Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton, even introduced a bill to prohibit federal funds from paying for a permanent fence around Capitol Hill. The fence currently costs about $1.2 million per week. Starting Monday, the razor wire will be taken down and new positioning will allow pedestrian access. But fencing will remain around Capitol Square. Representative Kevin McCarthy says Biden's policies are behind the surge and called on him to head down to the border himself.
When I walked through the facility, there's more Haitians than any other nationality I saw. And why were they coming now? You ask the border agents, they were shocked themselves because they're being released into the country.
President Biden reversed Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, which required asylum seekers to do just that, remain in Mexico, and await a decision from the U.S. McCarthy says a doctor told him that more than 10% of children are testing positive for COVID-19 when they leave the facility. He called the border crisis an outcome of Biden's policies.
He can continue to deny it, but the only way to solve it is to first admit what he has done. And if he will not reverse action, it's going to take congressional action to do it.
McCarthy suggested that Biden come down to the border and see the facilities for himself. Earlier in the day, a reporter asked White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki why Biden doesn't go down to the border. She circled around the question.
Well, I would say that his focus is on developing solutions, pushing his team, encouraging his team to develop solutions that will expedite processing at the border, that will open more facilities, that will ensure kids are treated with humanity and also treated safely, and that's his focus.
She says FEMA is now helping out with the border and that the administration is ramping up the processing of immigrants to avoid overcrowding, among other things.
There are more unaccompanied children crossing the border, with over 4,000 now reportedly in Border Patrol custody. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story and more from a border town in Texas.
Not even a week ago, Border Patrol reportedly detained over 3,200 children at the U.S.-Mexico border, all without their parents. Now, according to CBS and CNN, that number's gone up by 1,000, 4,200 total. Border Patrol got back to us, but they neither confirmed nor denied those reports. So we're here in the Rio Grande. We came down here to get a feel for the area and speak with Texans about the influx of illegal border crossings. In the border town of Laredo, attorney Nelly Viama has practiced law for 20 years, specializing in immigration.
You know, as an attorney, we follow the law. There's laws in process, and we have to follow that.
She says she's worried about the surge in illegal border crossings. For one, Viama says the community's safety is at risk when immigrants infected with COVID-19 enter the country. Secondly, criminal cartels profit from the flow of human lives.
What seems to happen is that the people in Central America got the wrong message, perhaps by the cartels, because of course they're making money with this. And I hear this from the other side, so I have a very balanced perspective because one of my sons is a border patrol, so he's stationed in the Donna station. And those are the stories that he hears from these families, you know, that, oh, well, they said that we can come, that Biden is going to help us.
And it looks like business is booming for cartels. Check out this video taken at the border on March 11th, courtesy of Tripwires and Triggers. A thick line of migrants await their turn to illegally cross into the U.S. According to Reuters, Mexican President Obrador says they need to regulate the flow of migrants because that business can't be tackled in a day. Laredo residents say the border isn't just the U.S.'s responsibility.
Each government should take responsibility. Everybody tries to protect their borders, so, I mean, I understand that too, but I mean, you got to protect that too.
Sometimes I feel like it's Mexico's responsibility, not so much the U.S.'s. I think in Mexico there aren't a lot of jobs over there. Well, the people have to find them. That's why they come. That's why we came, because there aren't many opportunities there like the ones here.
For Sandra Whitten, a Texas Republican and former congressional candidate, the border crisis hits home. Her husband's a Border Patrol agent.
We've seen all the outbreaks, whether it was COVID-19, whether it's been scabies or fleas or chicken pox or, H1N1. All of this stuff comes across the border, but nobody stops to think about the agents. Where you see all of these newscasts about, oh, what about all these people who've made the decision to come into the country illegally? We have to make sure that their health is taken care of.
A day after this interview, Governor Greg Abbott said the Biden administration agreed to offer Border Patrol COVID-19 vaccines after months of inaction. That's supposed to start this week. A reporter asked White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki if Mexico was doing enough to stem the flow of illegal immigrants crossing into the U.S. She said more could be done, but didn't say what more they could do. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, Laredo.
With confidence in our elections at an all-time low, Texas is the latest state writing new laws that protect against election fraud. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Election fraud is unacceptable, and that's exactly why I made it an emergency item this session.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott said Monday that the state is working to combat election fraud and that multiple bills are underway. Abbott says ensuring election integrity is not a partisan issue.
You know, there's really one thing that all of us can and should agree upon, and that is we must have trust and confidence in our elections.
He was joined by Texas Senator Paul Bettencourt and Texas Representative Briscoe Cain, the lawmakers drafting the legislation. The goal of these election reforms is to tighten the election systems so that no ineligible voters are able to vote. They also make election procedures across the state uniform and unchangeable. Abbott noted that in 2020, a number of election officials attempted to unlawfully change election procedures. This new legislation would put a stop to that.
Election officials should be working to stop potential mail ballot fraud, not facilitate it. Whether it's the unauthorized expansion of mail-in ballots or the unauthorized expansion of drive-through voting, we must pass laws to prevent election officials from jeopardizing the election process.
The bills would also protect poll workers and poll transparency. The governor pointed out that last year, a number of poll watchers were obstructed from observing the ballot counting process. Abbott told reporters that he was aware that election fraud had changed the outcome of some past local elections, but said he didn't know if fraud occurred in last year's election. The governor says he will sign the bills into law as soon as they arrive on his desk. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The Washington Post is walking back claims that former President Trump told Georgia's elections investigator to, quote, find the fraud. They admit the article falsified quotes attributed to Trump, but issued no apology. NTD's Christina Kim has more.
The Washington Post says in an update that Trump did not tell the investigator to find the fraud or say she would be a national hero if she did so. The March 11th update is added to the story that was originally published in January. Instead, Trump urged the investigator to scrutinize Fulton County, where he said they would find dishonesty. According to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and his officials, Fulton County had many issues during the 2020 election. A number of Democrat lawmakers cited the fake quotes to push for Trump's impeachment. And CNN, Reuters, ABC, NBC, and the Associated Press reported the falsified quotes, citing a single anonymous source. As of today, only CNN updated its article, saying the earlier version had a paraphrasing of Trump's comments. Critics say this illustrates the severe problem with the media's lack of accountability. Mark Hemingway, a senior writer at Real Clear Investigations, said this mistake is beyond serious for corporate media that, quote, insist they're the ones holding the line on the truth. While others, like MSNBC writer Hayes Brown, say corrections are good, and what would be corrupt is if they never issued a correction. Some say the specific quote was not accurate, but the overall narrative that Trump pressured election officials stands true. Christina Kim, NTD News.
And Trump responded, saying he appreciates the Washington Post's correction, but that the original story was a hoax right from the beginning. Trump says he'd also appreciate further investigation into Fulton County. And officials said Biden has directed the administration to deliver checks and shots to Americans to speed up recovery efforts. That as good news comes in that the country is starting to turn the corner on the virus. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more.
Announcing that the Biden administration has been busy providing aid to Americans. They're working on sending out stimulus checks and making vaccines available. And they're covering all of the cost for people on Medicaid and children's health insurance plans to get the vaccine. But the administration isn't the only group that's been busy. According to the White House COVID advisor, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists are working around the clock to vaccinate people. Andy Slavitt says they are doing more than just saying thank you to the people we call heroes. They're now covering more of the vaccine costs.
We're announcing that the Biden administration will nearly double Medicare's reimbursement rates for administering COVID vaccines from about $23 per shot to $40 per shot. That's $80 total for a 2-dose vaccine.
Since mid-February, the number of people dying from the virus nationwide each day has been declining. On Monday, the 7-day moving average of daily deaths was about 1,200. The CDC director, Dr. Walensky, fills us in on the case rate.
CDC's most recent data show cases continue to fluctuate somewhere between 50,000 and 60,000 per day, with the most recent 7-day average approximately 52,500 cases per day.
Dr. Walensky says on Friday, the largest number of travelers passed through airports since last March. She says the U.S. is just starting to turn the corner and the data is moving in the right direction. The CDC is warning against easing up on virus mitigation measures. Dr. Walensky said it is concerning that spring breakers are not wearing masks while there are still around 50,000 new cases per day. And Dr. Fauci told Fox News on Sunday that the recent spike in cases in Europe was because they relaxed their safety measures. Dr. Walensky says this should be a warning sign for Americans.
Each of these countries has had naders like we are having now, and each took an upward trend after they disregarded known mitigation strategies. They simply took their eye off the ball.
And Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Fauci, said the U.S. will help other countries by giving them vaccine doses. In mid-February, the Biden administration pledged to use $4 billion of U.S. taxpayer money to help a WHO-led program called COVAX. It aims to help countries around the world get access to the vaccine.
So we're very actively involved in thinking about and caring about the plight of other countries.
But Fauci says the priority is to vaccinate Americans before sending doses to other countries. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
The Vatican says the Catholic Church can't bless same-sex unions because God, quote, cannot bless sin. The Vatican's Orthodoxy office issued the statement Monday with the Pope's approval. But there is a distinction. The Church can welcome and bless gay people. It's the union that the Church won't bless because they say it's not part of God's plan. They say doing that could give the impression that same-sex unions have a sacramental equivalence to marriage, which would be incorrect. The Vatican says gay people must be treated with dignity and respect, but Catholic teaching says marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman that can create life. Coming up, spring break in Miami is in full swing, but it's also getting a little out of control. Police say they had to use pepper balls to disperse what they call aggressive gathering. And a self-made scholar turned his life around while serving a 15-year prison sentence. He's now about to graduate from Stanford University. That and more on NTD News. It's spring break now in Miami. This means a lot more visitors in the city. But things got a little chaotic this past weekend. NTD's Allison Lee has the details.
Local police arrested nearly 150 people in Miami Beach, Florida last Friday and Saturday. Spring breakers clashed with police as police officers tried to break up what they called aggressive gathering. Miami Beach Police confirms that on Friday night, they had to use pepper balls to disperse the large crowd. This is because people were surrounding the police. 2 officers were injured in the process. Miami Beach Mayor Dan Gelber says people were throwing rocks and bottles at police officers patrolling the streets. And when police tried to arrest a person in the crowd turned on the police. The Democrat mayor sends a warning message to visitors causing trouble in the city. Quote, "If you are coming here because you think anything goes, you're going to have a terrible time. We are going to arrest you." Gelber also disapproves of young visitors who don't wear masks.
I don't know if anybody learned from last year's experience. We did, in the sense that we know younger people are going to not wear masks. I'm hoping they did, but I think a lot of younger people are feeling like they want to get out and go crazy, and we're trying to let them know, don't do that.
According to local news network Local 10, police arrested close to 120 people on Friday night, charging 42 of them for felonies. They confiscated firearms, drugs, and cash. On Saturday, the police arrested another 30 people. The city of Miami Beach has a midnight curfew in response to the CCP virus. There are no statewide lockdowns or mask mandates in Florida, but local governments are still free to impose their own restrictions. Reporting by Allison Lee, NTD News.
In New York City, candidates are preparing for the upcoming primaries in a bid to become the city's next mayor. Today, a Republican officially started his campaign. NTD's Arian Pazdar has the story.
Curtis Sliwa officially launched his campaign today at Penn Station. Sliwa founded the Guardian Angels, a 40-year-old organization that patrols the city at night to prevent crime. He will run under the slogan, "Save Our City."
one thing they universally agree on, is that crime is completely out of control.
Sliwa wants to make the city safer by refunding the police. He also promised to support them in other ways and to work together with them closely. His relationship with the police wasn't always as good as it is now. They didn't support the idea of the guardian angels when they were first founded in 1979.
The NYPD was no friend of ours, and I got locked up 76 times.
He says his experience on New York City streets and with the police over 4 decades means he would be a down-to-earth mayor.
And a mayor who rides the subways every day, not just for a photo opportunity.
His other priorities would be to bring businesses and tourism back to New York and to clean up the subway. Sliwa says he would be the 3rd Republican mayor to serve the city after Giuliani and Bloomberg. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News, New York.
It's been over a year since most California public schools closed. Over the weekend, many parents and students held a statewide march and rally calling for the schools to reopen. NTD's David Jung has more from San Francisco.
About 300 parents and kids marched from the iconic Alamo Square in San Francisco to City Hall on Saturday. Many attendees wore yellow t-shirts that say, "Decreasing the distance." They are calling for full reopening of schools.
I miss my teachers and I miss my friends. And when I stare at the screen for so long, makes my eyes feel all groggy.
No more Zoomies! No more Zoomies!
I'm here for students, my students and also my child.
Both of these girls have been online learning, and I think that over time, turning off their video and muting their mic, that the participation has just gone down, and it's just very difficult to learn.
I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy online school. It doesn't make me happy.
Hey, BOE!
Meanwhile, our school district has become a national embarrassment. In San Francisco, supposedly an equity-focused, progressive city, we are among the last to reopen our schools.
Now, as 1 in 4 San Franciscans has received the vaccine, including our teachers. 1 year, it's time for us to bookend that and get all of our students back into school.
Several local elected officials attended the rally, where there was a sense of optimism.
Maybe we can get at least our elementary school kids back into school before the end of the school year. Hey, maybe we can open up some summer schools. Maybe we can make sure that all kids, high school, middle school, and elementary school start back this fall.
However, there are still many hurdles before the district and teacher union officials can reach an agreement for school reopening. Some say it could take until at least this fall to achieve full reopening for grades K-12 statewide. Reporting by David Jung, NTD News, San Francisco.
An Illinois man who served 15 years in prison expects to graduate from Stanford University this year. After one fateful moment, he knew he wanted to be known for something other than his crime. NTD's David Lamb has the details.
Jason Spires is a senior in computer science at Stanford University. But before transferring into the prestigious college in 2018, he had served 15 years in prison. He told us he started to sell cannabis when he was 19, but things took a turn in the early 2000s.
I then got arrested for a box of 37 pounds of cannabis coming from California to Illinois, sent from my mother's house to my father's house, and I received a 30-year sentence in the Illinois Department of Corrections.
While in prison, he says he saw a tree fall down right before his eyes onto a spot he usually hung out at. He realized that he could have died.
What would my life contribution to society have been had that happened?
He didn't want to be known for selling marijuana, but not knowing what else to do, Spires just tried to get smarter. He started studying chemistry, getting his books from the prison library.
And I would be out in the middle of the day room. I would have earplugs shoved in my ear. To this day, I still use earplugs because, you got 100 inmates in this one little area. And I'd sit there at my table, covered in papers, just like my desk is right now. Oh. And I would sit there and I would practice mole conversion equations.
Spires says he studied 6 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. His written notes ended up stacking higher than his 1,000-page textbook.
And I did every single page, every single problem, every single chapter until it was done.
At one point, he needed a calculator, so he begged the warden to get him one.
And believe it or not, it might sound like a small thing, but he got the library to let me borrow a scientific calculator.
Eventually, his original sentence of 30 years got cut down to 15. He spent 13 and a half years behind bars, then finished his sentence at a work release center. He said his father passed away and he couldn't attend the funeral while in prison. Spires was also fined over $200,000 for possession of marijuana.
I couldn't guarantee it was going to get me to Stanford, but I knew quitting and just playing spades all day long at the card table wasn't going to do too much for me, so I just kept going forward.
According to a Stanford article, Spires planned to attend community college after his release, but transferring to Stanford or another four-year university became the goal that sustained him. Along with academic challenges, he commuted from school to work on a bicycle, even in the snow. Spires transferred into Stanford 1 year after his release. He became interested in computer science after learning its potential from a programming course. Spires, now 39 years old, expects to graduate this June with an emphasis in artificial intelligence. He hopes to get into a master's program and use his experience and knowledge to support aspiring students, including those who serve jail time. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Chicago's river is shamrock green. The city is carrying on the tradition of dyeing the river green to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. NTD's Don Tran has more.
Since the tradition was canceled, it seemed Chicago would go a second year without dyeing its river green. But the city is enjoying a pleasant surprise. Mayor Lightfoot revealed on social media the city's river is flowing green once again.
Yeah, it's great. We're really excited to see it for the first time. We'd heard about it and not seen it before, so it's neat to see.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I love it.
It's cool. It's incredibly green. It makes me want to jump into it, which is crazy because I can't swim.
The tradition honors St. Patrick, Ireland's patron holy figure. Some are concerned the dyeing of the river is harmful to the environment. One bystander said it's just food coloring.
I don't think the river itself, even without coloring, is something really good as you can drink it directly or like swim or do whatever activities. So I don't think it make any real harm for the wildlife or whatever.
Even though there won't be a parade this year, the city is still able to carry on one tradition. The official day to celebrate St. Patrick is March 17th. Don Tran, NTD News.
Coming up, the worst sandstorm in a decade strikes China's capital. The thick dust made skyscrapers vanish and canceled hundreds of flights. And a Chinese company is giving up its majority control over AMC. This after the movie theater chain suffered a record loss of over $4 billion. That and more on NTD News.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too big to fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
Skies turn orange in Beijing as sand and dust descend on the city. Air quality indexes there reach hazardous levels. Media reports are calling it the worst sandstorm in a decade. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
The worst sandstorm in a decade blew through China's capital on Monday. Skyscrapers appear to vanish from sight, and hundreds of flights were canceled. The National Meteorological Center forecasts said the sand and dust would affect 12 provinces and regions, spanning from Xinjiang in the far northwest to Heilongjiang in the northeast and the eastern coastal city of Tianjin. The city's Environmental Monitoring Center says floating particles, known as PM10, rose beyond 8,000 micrograms per cubic meter in some Beijing districts. The World Health Organization recommends average daily PM10 levels of no more than 50 micrograms. Sandstorms happen regularly in the springtime. Sand from China's Gobi Desert blows eastward, helped along by deforestation and soil erosion throughout northern China. A Chinese company is giving up its majority control over the world's largest movie theater chain. According to its recent financial statements, American movie theater chain AMC suffered a record loss of over $4 billion. This is because it had to close its theaters in response to the CCP virus pandemic. Its Chinese owner, Dalian Wanda Group, recently sold and converted many shares of AMC. Wanda earned over 20% of AMC's shares by the end of last year, and it was AMC's largest shareholder. Now, Wanda owns less than 10%. Wanda's founder, Wang Jianling, was once the richest man in China. At the same time, he is a member of the Chinese Communist Party. His company, Wanda, acquired AMC with over $2 billion nearly a decade ago. The acquisition made Congress concerned about the Chinese regime's growing influence on entertainment. A U.S. judge has temporarily halted a ban that blocks Americans from investing in a Chinese smartphone maker. The Defense Department imposed the ban in January, which bars all American investment in any companies blacklisted by the Defense Department. Chinese phone maker Xiaomi was added to that blacklist based on alleged links to the Chinese military. That means U.S. investors must divest all holdings in the company before November this year. The Trump administration said the ban would prevent American investors from funding China's military development. It takes aim at the country's military and civil fusion strategy, a tactic that employs private companies to help develop military technology. And these private companies often raise capital by selling securities to American investors. That's as China's military poses a growing threat to U.S. national security. Xiaomi has denied having ties to Chinese military, and it took the Defense Department to court over the blacklist. But the Defense Department cites two reasons for the label. First, Xiaomi's founder received an award from a Chinese regime agency in 2019. It's the same agency responsible for managing Beijing's military fusion effort. The agency gives out the award only once every 5 years, and only to top private entrepreneurs. Only 100 people received the award in 2019. The second focuses on Xiaomi's technological ambitions.
Xiaomi has entered the 5G era.
The company plans to invest almost $8 billion into 5G development and artificial intelligence. The Defense Department says that technology is of key interest to the Chinese regime and a focus for Beijing's military civil fusion strategy. Xiaomi says it's pleased with the judge's decision and says it will work to permanently remove itself from the blacklist.
A senior State Department official acknowledges a Trump-era fact sheet about the pandemic. It claims the virus first leaked from a Wuhan lab following experiments and research done on a number of coronaviruses. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Biden administration officials seem to be acknowledging that the pandemic did stem from an accidental lab leak. The lab leak theory came most prominently from a fact sheet released by the Trump administration. Last Wednesday, a senior U.S. State Department official backed up the accuracy of the fact sheet. The unnamed official told the Washington Post that, quote, there wasn't significant or meaningful disagreement regarding the information presented in the fact sheet. No one is disputing the information, the fact that these data points exist, the fact that they are accurate. The fact sheet stated that the Chinese military ordered scientists to experiment with multiple coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The study started as far back as 2017. Some of those viruses were 96% genetically similar to the pandemic-causing CCP virus. And parallel to the experiments, some of the project's scientists developed symptoms similar to those of CCP virus patients. But the anonymous official isn't the only one backing up the claim. Former lead CCP virus investigator David Asher, also from the State Department, offered similar support for the fact sheet. He said China was developing a bioweapon that accidentally leaked from the Wuhan lab. Last Friday, in a discussion panel at the Hudson Institute, Asher said that, quote, "This might have been a weapons vector gone awry, not deliberately released, but in development and somehow leaked." But despite these allegations, the deputy director of the Wuhan Institute of Virology, Shi Zhengli, denies the allegations. In a statement, she said she, quote, "pledges with her life that the 2019 novel coronavirus has nothing to do with the Wuhan lab." Shi Zhengli has been dubbed China's Batwoman. That's for her prominent role in researching enhancing transmissibility of the SARS virus in bats. Her pledge received opposition from netizens. A Chinese social media user who claims to have a PhD in biological studies says the virus did leak from the lab. He pointed to biosafety issues, noting some researchers in the lab would keep laboratory dogs as pets. Some would not dispose of animal carcasses according to safety rules. Some would eat laboratory meat that had been experimented on, and some even sold lab animals to wet markets. Besides the safety issues, concerns have persisted that China may be trying to hide the origins of the virus. In January, the Wuhan lab deleted hundreds of pages of research concerning the virus. The research may have contained information on the true origins of the pandemic. The data wipe came just before the World Health Organization sent a team of experts to Wuhan to investigate the source of the initial outbreak. Reporting by Don Ma, NTD News.
If you were wondering just what goes on behind closed doors in China's ruling communist regime, especially in the last year or so, you're not alone. Europeans are growing increasingly distrustful of the regime. NTD's France correspondent David Vives speaks with a senator there to shed some light on the topic.
For more than 10 years, French Senator André Gattolin worked on France's foreign policies, where he observed the CCP and its impact in Asia and in Europe. He says recently he's noticed significant changes within the French government.
People I warned about the CCP's influence 10 years ago used to tell me I was paranoid. Today, some ministers and high-level officials I speak with in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs seem distrustful and suspicious towards China.
Gattolin says there are several telling examples of that. One is Confucius Institutes closing down in various universities across Europe.
In the Netherlands, 2 Confucius Institutes have recently been closed over suspicion of spy activities from the CCP. It seems the CCP thought it would be easy, but that's not the case.
And there are similar cases in the UK. Earlier this month, Kentucky University announced it had closed its Confucius Institute. In a letter, the university president said, quote, "There is growing and strong federal regulatory concern regarding Confucius Institutes. That is simply a facet of ongoing tensions between our two countries." But Gattolin says Chinese officials, CCP, are bolder than ever when they approach French officials and in what they are asking from them, in their attempts to influence decision-making.
The CCP is getting more aggressive and bold. Though it's quite easy to close the Confucius Institute, it's harder to stop the CCP's attempts to influence the universities through the networks it's in and the funding it gives.
A poll published in November 2020 shows that around 70% of people in France have negative or very negative feeling towards the Chinese regime. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Still to come, Toys R Us has another new owner. Its last 2 stores in the U.S. closed in January. Can the new company reverse the toy retailer's fate? And you might be paying higher prices than other people for the same product at the same retailer. Find out why and how you can avoid overpaying right here on NTD News. Toys R Us is under new ownership again. A brand management company purchased the embattled toy retailer in another effort to revive the company. True Kids bought Toys R Us less than 2 years ago and tried unsuccessfully to bring the store back. But WHP Global just bought a controlling interest in True Kids. and its Toys R Us and Babies R Us brands. WHP purchases struggling brands and tries to revive them. True Kids was maintaining the last 2 Toys R Us retail locations in the U.S. before they closed permanently in January. Toys R Us still has a website and more than 700 stores outside the U.S. WHP says the brand still generates more than $2 billion in sales across the globe. And do you go online to find better deals when shopping? If you do, you should watch out for these pricing traps. NTD's Evelyn Lee reports.
Did you know retailers change prices depending on your location? For example, Target's app can tell if you're shopping inside the store or outside it, and it can change prices accordingly.
If you are coming within proximity to a store and you're looking at prices online, you may notice that those prices jump.
But it may also differ for people who live in higher income areas or more expensive cities. It's a practice known as dynamic pricing. It's not unique to Target, and shoppers who don't know about it could end up paying more. Warwick says prices could change multiple times during a day.
Time of day, demand, location as well, like your zip code, if it's stored in your shopping account, all could affect how the retailer is going to target you with their prices.
And they do it to compete against the online giants. According to Business Insider, Amazon changes prices about every 10 minutes. It collects data and can even use the words you highlight in a Kindle to analyze your shopping patterns. Pressured by this, many brick-and-mortar retailers have followed suit.
I've noticed this across the board. I'm talking about Best Buy, Walmart, Target.
But she says there are several ways you can avoid overpaying.
You also can open up a private browser. This ensures that your cookies, so that might be past purchase data, history, and your location, aren't shared with the website that you're shopping at.
And for mobile apps, she recommends turning off location sharing.
Checking price histories of popular products. So sites like Amazon, they're kind of like a benchmark. A lot of retailers might base their prices on what Amazon is offering at that time. And there's a site called Camel that provides historical pricing data for many of the products.
Other options are installing browser tools that compare and find the lowest prices for the product you're looking at or apply available coupon codes. You can also take advantage of price matching at many stores. That means you can request matching the in-store price tag with the cheaper price you found online. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Air travel appears to be bouncing back. 5.2 million people have flown since Thursday. That marks the highest number of flyers in any 4-day period in the past year. The Transportation Security Administration says it screened more than 1.3 million people Sunday alone. Airlines hope this means the start of a comeback, especially after the industry just received $40 billion in new stimulus money. Experts say a spring break surge in air travel was expected, and business travel is still lagging. Some of the rarest and most famous items in the world are set to sell at an auction in New York City. NTD's Dawn Tran gives us a sneak peek.
At an upcoming auction at Sotheby's in New York City, these rare items are expected to sell for millions. One is the 1933 Double Eagle coin, which was never issued for use. They were all supposed to be destroyed after the U.S. dropped the gold standard.
It's America's most famous gold coin. It's the only one. There are other examples, but they're all owned by the U.S. Mint. This is the only one that's available for private ownership.
Sotheby's estimates it'll sell for between 10 and 15 million. The next item is the rarest stamp in the world, the British Guiana 1-cent magenta stamp.
It was a case of the stamps that had been printed in England didn't make it over to the colony, so they decided to print their own. And this is the only one that survived. And it was found by a 12-year-old boy 20 years later looking through papers.
It's also expected to fetch between $10 and $15 million. And the third item is a plate block of the inverted Jenny stamps. The 24-cent stamp issued in 1918 is the most recognized and sought-after U.S. stamp.
Each one of them has some sort of mishap or mistake that makes them valuable. And of course, I think the mistake on this is obvious. It's the upside-down biplane.
The three items will be on display to the public by appointment at Sotheby's in New York through March 17th.
Coming up, London police shut down a vigil for Sarah Everard amid a clash with demonstrators. Now the British government is calling for an investigation into the incident. And AstraZeneca says there's no evidence its vaccine raises the risk of blood clots, But a growing number of European countries, including Germany, are opting to suspend the vaccine. Find out more in just a moment.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and bite-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
The glory of piano masterpieces from the Baroque, classical, and romantic periods. New Tang Dynasty Television invites you to join the 2021 NTD International Piano Competition. Together, we preserve and revitalize the art of authentic classical piano music. October 2021 in New York City. Register now at piano.ntdtv.com.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
British police are facing investigations into their response to a large gathering in London on Saturday evening. Several people were arrested during a vigil for Sarah Everard, a woman who went missing while walking home and was later found dead. The police had previously deemed any such gathering to be illegal due to concerns over the spread of the virus. NTD's Neil Woodrow has the updates.
Hundreds gathered at Clapham Common in South London on Saturday, despite the police denying permission for the vigil. The situation early in the day seemed relatively peaceful, but it changed for the worse in the evening. The police trying to move the crowd on were met with resistance, chants that told them they were unwelcome. Scuffles broke out between female police officers and some women. Several arrests were made. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and others are reacting to footage from Saturday that suggests police used a heavy-handed approach. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, described footage of the scenes in Clapham on Saturday as unsettling. Her office says she has ordered an independent inquiry after an initial police report left some questions unanswered. The Prime Minister said he was deeply concerned about the footage of the unlawful gathering. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Cressida Dick, said the police were in a difficult situation. She said that once the crowd of people got bigger,
my team felt this is now an unlawful gathering, which poses a considerable risk to people's health, according to the regulations. A really invidious position for my officers to find themselves in.
There are already some investigations underway by the Independent Office for Police Conduct regarding police actions related to the Sarah Everard case. Certainly there is a lot of focus on the police force at the moment. Politicians too are in the spotlight. Everyone will be keenly watching. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
AstraZeneca says a review of safety data of people that already had its vaccine shows no evidence of an increased risk of blood clots. This as Germany, France and Italy join Norway, Ireland, Austria and a handful of other European countries in suspending the vaccine.
AstraZeneca said Sunday a review of safety data showed there was no evidence its vaccine raises the risk of blood clots. The company's review covered more than 17 million people vaccinated in the United Kingdom and European Union. and comes amid a flurry of suspensions over alleged clotting issues. Authorities in a number of countries, including Ireland, Austria, and the Netherlands, have suspended the vaccine. In a statement, the company said, AstraZeneca has shown no evidence of an increased risk of pulmonary embolism, deep vein thrombosis, or thrombocytopenia in any defined age group, gender, batch, or in any particular country. The drug maker added 37 blood-related incidents have been reported so far, which it says is similar across other licensed COVID-19 vaccines. The company plans to publish the monthly safety report on the European Medicines Agency website within the next week.
AstraZeneca's vaccine, developed with Oxford University, has been authorized for use in the European Union and other countries, but not yet in the United States. The company is expecting results from U.S. Phase 3 trials in the coming weeks, when it will then file for emergency authorization. And police seized a red Ferrari worth nearly $300,000 and over $800,000 in cash when 12 members of the largest drug gang in Madrid were arrested on Sunday.
A red Ferrari, 600 kilograms of cocaine, and an arsenal of weapons, including a Japanese sword, were seized from members of the largest drug gang in Madrid, police said on Sunday. 12 members of the gang were arrested, and Spain's national police called them very violent. 3 daggers and several automatic weapons were also found during a series of raids. Police said in a statement that it was the largest cocaine distribution organization in the Spanish capital. A drugs lawyer carried out legal duties for the organization, including money laundering, while gang members used code names to refer to each other or the apartments used to store the cocaine. The leader of the gang, who is from Morocco, worked with other gangs in Morocco, Spain, Northern Europe, and Colombia. Spanish police worked with counterparts in Colombia to carry out the operation.
The scenic city of Venice is empty again. Much of Italy is back under severe lockdowns, with people only able to leave home for a limited number of reasons. It's a blow to the floating city, which relies heavily on tourism. NTD's Lin reports.
The lagoon city of Venice was once again deserted on Monday as the surrounding region became a red zone, put under the most severe restrictions as the country struggles to contain a growing spread of COVID. Pre-pandemic, the picturesque city of just 60,000 residents would be crowded with tourists all year round, normally visited by 20 million tourists a year. Now, along with almost half the country's regions, Veneto is once again under the most severe restrictions. In red zones, Italians are only allowed to leave their homes for work, health, or emergency reasons. Non-essential shops and schools must close. The tougher measures come almost exactly a year after Italy's first nationwide lockdown. Restrictions on cross-border travel have been a blow for the city. St. Mark's Square was empty again. There was no buzzing of motorboats on the canal again, and only a lone egret bird enjoyed the parked bobbing gondolas. Reporting by Lin, NTD News.
Spain's fruit trees are bursting into a breathtaking view. As springtime approaches, hundreds of thousands of buds are in bloom. Orchards spread across 8,500 hectares of fields in Spain's Aitona, producing a riot of color. Thousands of tourists and locals head for the fields every spring to see the spectacle. But this season, the flowers have a deeper significance after a year of virus-related deaths and lockdowns halting normal life for most.
Being here in a landscape as spectacular as this, it symbolizes the beginning of a new cycle. That is what we all hope for, that it is the beginning of a new cycle, and that we have learned something positive from this year that has been very difficult. I wish the greatest happiness for everyone. We have learned to appreciate different things, not like what we appreciated before, material things, for example. Now we put more value on people and nature and landscapes like these.
The trees yield an annual production of 330 million pounds of fruit, including peaches and pears. The birth of a baby giraffe in one of Britain's zoos is cause for celebration for conservationists worldwide. It's estimated there are just 1,600 of its kind left in the world.
A zoo in northern England celebrated the birth of a rare Rothschild giraffe and captured the new arrival on CCTV. Born at Chester Zoo on March 3rd, the male calf was already standing at 6 feet tall and weighed 154 pounds. After a 15 months pregnancy, Mother Orla delivered onto soft straw before the calf took his first wobbly steps. Giraffe experts say he will grow to be 18 feet and weigh over 2,000 pounds.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.